had two economics people, one from Nebraska and one from Kansas. That way people couldn't say it wouldn't work here.
All right. Well, thanks for that. And a lot of what Candy says, I'm probably going to go way different areas on that. Crop year rotation, I'm going to be different on a lot of stuff. I'll push a system until it breaks. So I want to see what that point is. Lance talked about some of his rotation. I am a 9-year Milo on Milo on Milo on Milo on Milo on Milo for 9 years in a row now.
So there's hope.
So, and it was paying the bills this year, or last year we decided it was getting to a point where the pressure of some mismanaged grazing on it and wheat pressure, so we went to corn. 2024 was not a great corn year for us, so that was a pretty bad deal. It's back to Milo again, right? So this will be 10 years of the same crop on it. A little history behind that. It's the highest cash run field I pay. Cover crops are hard to implement on something where you're kind of paying top dollar for something. So kind of a little history on that. But yeah, I mean, we like looking at that. How we can overcompensate some of that is by adding some biological products or something like that to keep this system moving to where it's not just a big crash yet. I thought year 6 was when it was going to fall, and it didn't. It just kept going. It just kept staying there and just kept building. We weren't getting really high yields, but we weren't dropping off either. So we were just kind of at a plateau where we were maintaining. So we'll keep pushing that system until we'll see where it breaks.
Are you putting in covers in between those, or is it just pretty much?
Milo, no covers. It gets grazed poorly in between. And
Are you seeing any increase in organic matter?
I don't know, I haven't checked that field in a long time. So I'll kind of get to points of that field here in a little bit. So I started in 1993, we had 265 acres. I am a first generation farmer. So I have a whole different mindset than a lot of you guys probably in the room that are, 4, 5, 6 generations that you're coming in here. Also gives me the reins to do a lot of stupid stuff, right? So I don't have to answer to my dad or anybody else like that. Little timeline we just did in '94, we were doing some no-till with Milo, still, conventional, maybe trying to play around with that. 99, we moved to minimum till. I got tired of bouncing through washouts in the tractor. And I was like, there's got to be something better than spending all my time in the tractor. 2005, we did go to full no-till. 2008, I introduced cover crop into the system. I'm probably the different one if I have no livestock. I'd probably get divorced if I owned a livestock. My wife grew up on a livestock farm and all that, and knew that they had no family vacations. They never got away from the farm, and Jess said she was going to marry a farmer, and she was wrong. So.
Hey, I said the same. When you said you can do whatever you want, I looked at my husband, I said, what about the wife?
Yes. And somehow, through crazy stupidity of wanting to be the biggest farmer around, we grew to, 5,000 acres of dry land, and we still manage some irrigation too that we'll talk about here in a little bit. So farming above my means, this is just what I kind of think about it. Is when you're spending more money than you earn, spending everything you earn without having anything left over, and it's often, or always will probably be unsustainable, right? So, and what does it lead to most of the time? Financial difficulties, right? And then that just can boil into a lot of different elements. I get this from my wife all the time. Do you want it or do you need it? Right? And my answer is always yes. I want it and I need it, right? Kind of an example of this, if you're a YouTuber, Cole Cornstar is very good about showing a little bit of what his economics. And Logan's not here, but I'll tell you, standing up here and giving your farm economics is awesome. It's not always fun, right? It's not easy, but he said last year in 2024, they had a record harvest for their corn crop and still lost $200 an acre on that farm. He averaged 50 bushel better per acre than they've ever done on that farm. lost $200 an acre. That is a prime example of farming above your means. My nephews that was farming with me, which is not anymore, they had severe hail damage on a milo crop, and the insurance check got them to break even. They harvested, what did they end up harvesting? They normally, let's see, their best field was 110 bushel, and that field they harvested 26 bushel. That was a 76% decrease in yield, and they still broke even. The other one had what did he have? I think it's a 23% increase in yield and lost $200 an acre. So, just a little example I was going to see. Most of this you're going to see, I'm just going to throw this out. This is always where we're at. All this data that I was building here in the last year, this has all been through rough years of no learning fall. If you get rain, you might got hail with it or whatever else. So, we kind of look at knowing your numbers. This is what I'm thinking of right now in my mind. One semi-load of milo or corn is worth one animal. You know, and I'm like, when you don't have those animals, this seems intriguing, right? You know, that's $3,000 worth, and that's $3,000 worth. Looking at marks, I mean, my mind goes to math all the time. When those cattle come running in, I'm like, that is the most beautiful $1 million looking thing out there. Because 250 head is $1 million worth of animals right there that came running up to you last night. Okay. I mean, it could be worth more with the cattle, right? You know, I mean, we're just kind of figured that out. So I'm going to throw this in. So this is one of these fields that we highly pushed, and I have an issue. My landlord owns this that is a cattle guy. He's not a farmer. All he has is pasture and cattle. If I don't rent this milo stocks to him, I don't get to probably keep farming this land, right? So he overgrazes totally, and there's nothing I can do about it. If I complain, I argue, I'm going to lose the ground, right? You know, so it's a really bad situation. What I want you to notice is his cows have ruined the tops of my terraces for my crops. Nothing will grow there now. Right here's where the water source is. Where they haul it, where they walk. You know, the walk, all this, you know. So, finding a connection like Lance and Mark has been really hard for us. Most every time I've had a grazing experience has been bad. It's overgrazed, it's not managed correctly, and I will say incorporation of livestock properly will get you farther than just chasing out what happens here. So, it was really hard for us, but we had to go chisel all those terraces. Because I had to prevent plant this field this year, because the water would stay all the way between all these terraces. It looked like a duck pond out here. It looked like a 120-acre duck pond right here. No infiltration now. And that's just because of a mismanagement of my landlord that I don't have control of. And it happens, right? So the why of how we try to make a change of not farming above our means, I mean, it's easy. We need more money. We got to have that bank account to keep operating. The how we're going to do this, pretty difficult, right? And it's going to change on everything because every farm has a different approach. And as farmers, we're very stubborn people. Whether we're not going to change in our ways, I'm worried about what the neighbor's thinking.
Yes.
Got a lot of issues that we have as farmers that we're stubborn and we're prideful people. So every farmer has to have a toolbox, and the best toolbox is always loaded with the best tools, right? You know, I don't have any snap-on tools in mine, so I go to Harbor Freight. So I've learned how to run on Harbor Freight tools. So we look at these. These are the tools in our box. This is what we look at: debt load, cash flow. I want to look at a bird's eye view of our operation from 25,000 feet above and see if I see anything that's weird. Risk management, crop insurance, and crop insurance options, right? This is the backbone to how we look at everything we're doing on our farm. When we look at this debt load, we review it. We look at, is it machinery? Is it land? Is it crop inputs? Where are we spending this money? And then we look at the machinery. Is it ROI on each piece? land, give up low profit pieces, right? You know, it's, those fields with my one landlord, it's tough not to give that up. But I also was pretty smart, because I inherited this landlord. So that I got a 15-year lease on this land, and then a year and a half later they sell it. So this guy's stuck with me, and I'm stuck with him for the next go-around here, right?
Doesn't sound great.
But we also looked at some pieces, and I'll give you an example here. I had an opportunity to buy a piece of land. I've been farming for 14 years for my dad's aunt. She lives in Chicago. Her husband just died, so kids don't want to come back from Chicago to farm it, so we're going to sell it. And it was appraised at $2,700 an acre. And I said, I'm not interested. She's like, we've been farming. I mean, why would you want it? It's family type ground. And I'm like, I can't make it work. Because I was going to have to borrow the money to run that. And my cash rent right now, currently, was $38 an acre on it. If I bought it, my cash rent was going to be $110 to the bank. This piece of ground will not produce $110 back to me to pay for it. So it was not worth the risk to buy it. And we just let it go. Crop inputs, we talked a little bit about this last night in the lobby. You know, a lot of us, we just build, we just start buying stuff. Grandma says, buy this, put it on, we do it. And we start from the bottom, next thing we know, we got $350, $400 an acre in it, and we're like, oh, how did we get there? So we build from the top down, right? You're gonna start with, I'm not spending more than this amount, and we start budgeting, and we figure out where we're gonna have to cut. And normally it's fertility, right? Is where you're gonna have to cut to figure this out. So here's my take, we talked a little bit last night. Your yield that you need, I guarantee it equals your debt load. If you're farming for 250 bushel corn, you have way too much machinery, debt load. You got something going on if you have to have 250 bushel corn. Out here, I don't know what is the dry land average. 100, maybe 100? Maybe. What's the irrigated? 220, 250, right. But I always say, when I talk to people and they're like, oh, your yields are slower, I can't do that. Immediately, I'm going to get too much debt. I don't even have to dive into it, I'll tell you have too much debt. Because you're chasing yield that is paying debt. So how we look at our cash flow, we review that, we can break it down by crop, field by field, the whole growing season. There's different ways you can do this. Sometimes we look at all of them and then compare them to each other of how we're breaking down where the cash is going. Banks, we look at all loans all the time. We look to refinance whenever you can. If you are in good standing with the bank, if you got a good credit score, you go in always asking for lower interest rate. Most times they'll tell you no. What's the worst? They just say no. They might give you 0.5%. You don't know. But if you don't ask, you never find out. So we look at that. You can always try to refinance, find an interest rate. High interest rates were a killer these last few years. They're really, 10% operating note was not a fun thing in 2024, right? And just remember, and you'll hear this, a lot, cash is king, right? Cash flow is all what the bank's about. If you're not cash flowing, they're not going to give you a line of credit. They're not going to extend your line of credit. If you're not cash flowing, they might cut your line of credit, right? So it's king. The bird's eye view in the toolbox that we're looking at, when we're looking at the cash flow, I always do scenarios. What happens if the price drops 25%? What if it increases 25%? What can I pay off? What short-term debt is better to pay off? What isn't? The worst one I love is when yield drop 25% and the price drops 25%, right? But if you don't have these factors figured in when you're building those crops, you might be already farming above your means to where you can't pay for that. So we play out a lot of the scenarios when we're looking at that cash flow. So what we did this year, or 2024, is we had an irrigated field. In our area, 220 is what they're shooting for, okay? I would have ended up with $811 an acre to try to achieve 220 bushel corn. At $396 is my cost of production. Selling price is $435. That's what we averaged when we sold that. I made $146. Okay, spent $800, got $146. I would have pumped my water allotment. I would have planted 36,000 population on that pivot, I probably would have had fungicides, I would have had, high fertility to get to that and that. So then what we decided to do is we planted a variety at 15,000, the double ear. So I fertilized for 15,000 corn, just did all this. We added a little extra inch, so we thought we'd have some herbicide issues with not having a thick canopy out there. But look at the break even. 174 is what I break even at. 85 bushels on irrigated. This doesn't scare me. This kind of makes me excited, right? I have one freaky light hailstorm, I'm in trouble, right? Or the pivot goes down for 2 weeks. I'm in trouble. I'm going to drop down into this range, pretty fast. But look, I take off less bushels and I make more money. So this is why I always get arguments of, yield is not everything, right? But you tell me it is, I'm going to tell you you can get your debt load. So here's what those kind of numbers look like. We had 115 in the fertilizer, 60 in seed cost, 55 harvesting. We self-insure this thing, so we don't take out crop insurance. So we got a little bit of hell insurance. This is an owned piece of property, so that is taxes. They're in here. I plan it. This is pumping cost, and I get paid $12 to maintain this pivot. So what was interesting, I didn't hit my 150 yield goal because I was mistaken on this double ear thing because they're two fixed ears. And when one plant doesn't produce the second ear, I have a 12 by 32 ear that is not going any bigger, it's not doing anything else, and that kind of dramatically hurt it. But a lot of times we did double ear, which was good, but it didn't. But that was a reduction in the percentage. If I had that same percentage off that 220 that you saw where our yield goal was before, I'm below the 174. I'm actually not making much money on that. So I harvested below what I thought. My break even was 75. Insured at the 70% level, I'm guaranteed 115 bushels. So even if we would have lost that whole crop to a hailstorm or Mother Nature, I was going to actually make money with crop insurance for a change on that. So when we're all said and done, we made $208 an acre. The amount of risk we had with the RMA price with the crop insurance on here was 0% risk. I had nothing out of my pocket if there was a complete disaster on that pivot. We did that using 9 inches of applied moisture. I'm allowed 29, but I did a 70% water reduction. So for us who care about the aquifer, this is key, right? I don't need to be growing 250 bushel corn and not making any money at it and pumping this maximum amount of water I can. That's key. So this presentation, the reason why it's in here, we presented that at the Kansas Governor's Water Conference last year, and we're hoping to get a spot there to talk more about it. Irrigated milo, this can be a love-hate relationship. It was double team milo, and that was a mistake because it does not have the genetics to push good yield. It looked good, but it made 100. It was kind of interesting on that, but our marketing average, but here's the nice thing, break-even bushels again on milo, 70. We're still pretty much 0% risk out of my own pocket. Only made this, so this told me what we did this year. We don't have milo underneath the pivot, right? It's back to corn. Corn is going to make 200, almost double what the milo. Dryland milo, this is the world I live in, right here. So this is my farm averages. 205 is pretty much what I average in here for my crop. When we look at that, I'm guaranteed 51 bushels. So my APH, and then if you're soil sampling, this is another thing I really love. Guys will go in there and say, what's your yield goal? It's 120 bushel. My APH is 73. Why am I shooting for 120 bushel? I've done it one time in my life, and this is the year. I'm gonna do it again, right? So, our soil samples, if we send them in, it's 70 bushel yield goal, is what we're gonna be. That's the means I farm in, right? So, we just shoot for what we can. So, at the 70% level, I'm guaranteed 51 bushels. That is still better than my break-even bushels of 44. So again, I have no out-of-pocket expense if we have a complete disaster on that farm.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why don't you have health insurance?
So the question was, if you wonder why I didn't have health insurance. I'm just a guy that rolls with trying to self-insure myself as much as I can, right? And so if I don't have, $25,000 set in the bank account that I know I can make it to tomorrow on, I'll try to take out health insurance. And it's a gut deal. It's year to year, right?
Well, only reason I ask is I know the situation you
Oh yeah,
were in.
we've all been hammered,
Included,
right?
But I've found out.
Milo really sucked because then if it's not headed out, it doesn't pay for crap.
Right,
You can be 100% defoliated, and they'll be like, we're deferring it.
10%, yeah.
We're good to defer it and see what happens. Unless it's physically turning color, it will not hardly pay for them to come out, to do. And so we might, if it all of a sudden weird storm starts cropping up and I get a weird gut feeling, I might call and put it on. It's not that we don't always do it, but.
Only reason I ask is it's cheaper than what, it's like instead of putting it on wheat, it's cheaper, but
Right.
there's times I understand what you're saying.
And I'll answer this a little bit why we don't do it too here in a little bit. We do it on our wheat, or corn, right? I mean, corn, we always had it, mainly also because you can have the wind endorsement on it. So this is why I don't like poverty grass. So, my farm average is 35 APH. When you look at this is 2024's number, RMA was guaranteed 734, when we love to see that number, right? Again. I'm going to lose $55 an acre to harvest 34 bushel wheat, Well, fortunately, guys are harvesting some 50 and 60 bushel wheat right now. But they're also not averaging 234. They're averaging 350. And I don't know the number that was said yesterday. I'm like, there ain't nobody.
Mark just said 300 is what K-State
Yeah.
was the average.
Yeah, I'm going to say more like 350 probably to 375 would be the number I believe is where most of the higher input people are. But look at this number here now. So if I only am guaranteed 24 bushels by crop insurance, 23% of that number comes out of my pocket that's at risk if I don't achieve that. So that's why we really have a hard time looking at wheat and trying to understand, its economics. Crop insurance, I'm gonna tell you, this is the thing. I get people tell me all the time, they're like, hey, do you play that crop insurance game? Like, you darn right I do. If you don't do it, you're missing out on a bunch. And it is a game now. I hate to say it, it is a game to try to figure out what to do to make it the most best risk making for your farm. You have to have an agent that understands crop insurance. Don't buy it from your banker, don't buy it from the guys that try to sell you life insurance. Find someone that knows and understands crop insurance. My agent, they only do one thing in that office, and it's crop insurance. They're decent enough at it that my nephew went to his buddy and bought out the pasture or the PRF. And everybody that went with my agent in the first quarter had their premiums back, right? And the second quarter, it's like paying, third quarter, it's just like starting to roll. He never got his premiums back because his agent guided him in the wrong months, the wrong selection, they did not do the research. My agent will send me every time I'm ready to plant a crop, every level, every option we can add, everything on there, what it's gonna cost, what the breakdown is, every time. And I can go evaluate that, decide, do I wanna go to a 75, do I wanna stay at 70, do I wanna add trim digest, do I wanna add yield exclusion, what do I wanna put on here? So, like I said, that's what I have. Previous one I had, sold everything, right? And got us in some really bad situations. These, if you're not into them yet, please look into them. These are money makers. These are stuff you add on top of your multi-peril policy. SCO and ECO, supplemental crop insurance. The great big beautiful bill that just got passed, right, is funding this heavier than it did previously.
Subsidies higher.
Subsidies higher. Yep, they're paying for this. So look into these, talk to your deal. On our corn last year, we harvested one field that made 40 bushel, everything else was 1 bushel or less, turned into crop insurance. SEO policy on me on 1,042 acres paid me $145,000 a year. And it cost me $7 an acre to add that on to the policy. So, all I'm telling you is play this game and find an agent that understands the game and find them and play it well. Candy kind of hit up on it. Here's kind of the secret of our success of how we're kind of maximizing systems and doing anything. This is our live biology product. It's organics. If you want to look into it, find it, look them up online. It's a live biology. We have to keep this refrigerated if we're not going to use it right away. And back to the respect of bug in a jug, I think you said. This is a bug in a jug because I'm not going to go get it, but it's a compost extract tea that it has lactobacillus, yucca extract, humic, fulvic, 800 different species of bacteria and fungus. Mycorrhizal fungi is one of the funguses in it. It's an all-around really good product. And we have to keep it refrigerated when we're not using it so it doesn't, all the biology doesn't eat itself out of that system. So that is one that we like. A 32 ounce rate, which is half the rate the OEM of Organics recommends, but we find out it's doing just fine with us at 32 ounces. So it's $10 an acre to do that. We run, this is an ortho water-soluble phosphorus. That is 48 pounds of phosphorus and 100 pounds of product. And I'm running 5, so I'm getting 2.4 pounds of phosphorus. That's all the phosphorus we put on every year, 2.4 pounds.
This is your dryland Milo
Dryland, irrigated, don't matter. This is in for a mix.
for everything.
For everything.
Okay.
Yep. So Calfa is carboxylic acid. Works really well in high pH soils. It makes anything that's all tied up untied, right? So we got a lot of iron colosis and Milo areas. We got that yellowing. This helps with that quite a little bit to get in there. So 12 ounces of it is about $4 an acre that we add in. Zinc, manganese, calcium. We run a quarter pound of it in furrow, and then this is fulvic, right? $1.56. You can run fulvic or you can run molasses, either or. You know, any carbon source that's in there. Fulvic for us, anytime the sprayer goes across the field or a planter goes across the field, it's getting fulvic acid to them. The reason why we struggle in our systems, right? Candy is carbon, right? Carbon's king. Carbon's the king thing. Fulvics are liquid carbon, right? Regardless how you want to look at it, it's liquid carbon.
If you were to do a humic instead of the fulvic, does that mess with any mixing of what you got?
No, and humics are fine too. Don't be wrong. The reason why we run
It's just a
fulvic,
higher, it's a longer chain carbon is what I was asking.
right? The reason why we like fulvics in my region is I'm 8 pH soil, right? And this is 2.5 pH, and humics are 0.2, 0.5.
Correct.
I buffer better with
Okay.
fulvic, especially when we're spraying.
If you think of it in terms of the biology itself, a fulvic helps make a lot of nutrients available and builds that relationship with the biology, whereas the humic is more focused on their structure. Let's say it's a longer chain carbohydrate. It has more of a tendency to tie up with soil. It's a heavier molecular weight than fulvic acid, so the fulvic acid does chelate cations and anions. It's a good quality product, and it'll help release those back into the soil via the biology once they make that association. Whereas the humic is just mainly cations, and so it ties, or anions, it ties directly with your soil and will build structure. So if you're trying to build your structure and you want to add more than just a root, and you want to get it going a little quicker, humics.
Yeah, so I mean, we made a mistake years ago. I added a ton of biochar in with my wheat seed, thinking I I needed this long chain carbon
Yeah.
source.
Application.
I built too big of a house that had nothing in it, right? So that's what you gotta watch out for, and I think that's kind of what Candy's alluding at, you know, if you build $1 million house, but you don't have any money to buy finish out the inside, what good's $1 million house, right? You built the house, but there's nothing in it. So we're trying to make sure that we can make with the full Vic in our area, all that biology and all that tied up, everything, move that's in that house that we're trying to build, so.
The biochar that you're applying was naked, it was not charged with anything?
No, I tried charging it, but I was like stupid at the time when we were doing it, so I took some soil out of the fence row that I thought was as native as what I could probably be, and we treated that as it went up through the auger into the drill and everything, so it was kind of interesting. And on that, no different fertility, but we had a 4% more protein in the biochar wheat than non-biochar wheat. So if you want to play with proteins, maybe look at that chain of that. I don't know if that was just the year, what it was, but where we had the check strips, which was on that great big field that I showed you that map of, we split half of it. That's a 400 acre field, so 200 had biochar, 200 didn't have biochar. The average was 4% more protein where the biochar was.
What variety was that?
Of the seaweed at that time, it was Oakley. You can imagine a variety nobody probably wants around anymore, you know? And we were running Oakley because of all of our oat cover crops in the spring. I was getting so much volunteer oats that I needed the Clearfield advantage to clean up and that's why we got Oakley. This is just what we kind of do at V3 to V5. And in the last 2 years when I've done this on my corn dies right after this because of the stress. Not because of this process, but you know, before the bill comes to me from the aerial guy, my corn is already dying from the drought, right? You know, last year we just went from looking beautiful first part of, you know, June and all this, and then July just sucked. And yeah, so we flew that on. Again, this is just like an ortho, this 30-10-10, it's water soluble. The ZMC TrueStim, this is just a photosynthesis stimulator. We're not running this right anymore. I didn't know if I saw that much more out of it. Again, the fulvic, this could be molasses or sweet soil, as she calls it. This is Wind Biological's product. It's Sweet Caroline now. It's still molasses that has the yucca extract in it. So that's the caveat to it. If she can get her price point down on that product, she'll have something, right? I mean, I think it's $12 a gallon, where molasses is like probably $6 a gallon. So it's a lot to pay for yucca extract, but in drought conditions, we do know that the yucca is definitely helping. And this is her soy sauce, which is just potassium. So, tasseling to heading. Like I said, I haven't had to do this one yet because we haven't made it there in the last 3 years. So, but this is what we could do.
Are you running a fully fast mile?
We have tried. And when I don't pull the trigger, I get rain, and then I can't get back in there to it, you know. And if I do pull the trigger, then, you know, the whole problem with this foliar feeding on the Milo is I'm just like 3 weeks away going, if I spend that money, am I going to get it back? Because the crop could be going backwards faster. So what do we do?
Did you do, sorry, go ahead.
Go.
I was gonna say, did you do this second application fully on the corn this year? No, okay.
No, because I thought my corn was, I mean, I had guys calling me 2 weeks ago wanting to know if they could come chop it already.
Okay.
And then we caught 3.5 inches of rain and it's like perked back up. So, I mean, again, I probably could have, but
Yeah,
the timing of this foliar for us out here sucks.
yeah,
And when we all have cereal grains, cattle, other stuff going on in the summer, it's not like Iowa where we can just go out and keep side dressing and keep spoon feeding this baby because that's all we have to do. We kind of started looking at bird's eye view of rotational profits. Here's 14, you know, we were typical wheat, Milo, and then we fallow, right? Here's the cost of that. There's that 3-year rotation, lost $3 an acre, right? So then we started adding a cover crop in here, shortening that fallow period, saved me $30 an acre on chemical costs. Now I'm kind of that 3-year rotation, I'm at least up to $27 an acre, you know, we're gaining. Then I went to Milo, and then planted a cover crop after the Milo in the spring, or if I could get in the fall, but typically it'd be a spring planted cover crop. This is what got us thinking that we have to get rid of wheat rotation, right? You know, we kept looking at this and like, what's going on here? You know, where's the problem? The problem was back to two problems. Fallow and the wheat were the problem, right? So what was interesting, I took this slide out, I guess, but I had another one that we were milo, barley, and then wheat. So I was kind of doing Andy Anderson's thing. We had 2 warm seasons followed by 2 cool seasons in here. And that one actually gets you up over $300 an acre, you know, deal. And I mean, I'm not saying that you always have to have a cover crop, but continuous root is better than fallow. So anytime you can still, if you just still need to try to make money and turn this over, where I don't have cattle, I don't have the luxury of that cover crop gets grazed, right? So. Just look at spray operations. When we were in the wheat, milo, chem fallow, we were doing 9 to 10 operations in that 3-year. That's $60 according to K-State's numbers. By the time we went to milo cover, my sprayer's running here. I'm not putting hours on a sprayer, you know. I don't have to worry about trading it now. Now I got to worry about, do I have an ROI problem on the sprayer because I'm not using it enough, you know. And so, but yeah, you're looking at $36 an acre savings from what we were doing to what we decided to change to. So I get this all the time. I have to plant wheat because, man, my milo corn does phenomenal behind that wheat stubble. And it will when it releases its nutrients, right? When the wheat stubble does. But I feel like it's a cash flow issue. We were so used, and our grandparents, if you were doing it, when was their debt set up to pay? July and August, right? After they got wheat. Down debt, right? So the banks, everybody was used to it, but the bank really doesn't care if you lost $50 an acre. All they want you to do is come in and give them that check to pay down the line of credit, and you keep moving on to the next day. So I think that that's why wheat in the rotation makes the banker happy, because it's cash flow. They get to see peaks and valleys, which they want to see. So in 2020, we tried this. I'm not spending more than $135 on a wheat crop. So I'm going to have to cut wherever I'm going to have to cut, you know. At the current price in 2020 was $4.48. I needed 30 bushels an acre to break even. My farm average at that time was 31 bushels. My old system, I would have been at about $205 in inputs, and I would have needed 50 bushels. So now I'm farming above my means. My insurance guarantee is not even going to cover what my break even is. So when you kind of make the shift, I'll warn you, because we went through the struggle. When you make the shift to low input farming, you will have some low yields. It's going to be part of the transition phase that you're going to have. But the keys to getting this down is you have to get your debt load down, restructure your cash flow. My example is I was $1 million gross income on our farm. I harvested 750,000 of the most profitable per acre crop we ever did. But my debt was structured around $1 million. So right away, I was short $250,000 on the most profitable per acre crops I ever raised. So that's what I'm trying to get you guys to understand. If you're going to do this, understand that debt load, or it will come back to get you. How it got us, and I don't know if the banks will do it now, is I could not pay down my line of credit. And there's people in this room were in there, right? It's all been there. You can't get that line of credit paid down. I ended up scheduling it out over 7 years, that 250, because what it does, if you're 250 short, the bank's like, don't worry about it, we'll just roll it next year, you're gonna be fine. Well, I'm already started 250 down, right, you know? Now I'm like, man, I don't have enough to make it through to pay my cash rents or my land payments. I mean, I'm gonna be in trouble already, right? I don't know if the banks today will let you schedule that out now to try to help free up so you can operate what you need to operate and get through that. So just be careful if you are going to do that. Again, I think all of us have a huge ego problem. You know, you have to sell off machinery that doesn't make you money. You know, I've come across guys that have 6 loader tractors. Like, you got 200 head. Why do you need 6 loader tractors? Well, one breaks down. You know, so just kind of look at that. Cash flow, it's what the banks are all about. You have to be able to pay that line of credit down. It's Scary, in 2019, Kansas was ranked 3rd in the nation in bankruptcy filings. And it's coming, people. Be ready. It's getting worse, right? So the asterisks you see behind those numbers, if you can see them, that is decade high violence in 19. What saved us, Lance, in 19? Remember? Trump bucks.
Oh, yeah.
CFAP, right? China killed us on the Milo world, right?
Soybeans.
China Milo. And then, CFAP comes, and then the corn guys are torqued off because they're not getting nothing, so now it's paid on the acre instead of the bushels you harvested, or arts on the acre instead of the bushels. Crazy thing. I don't know how well you guys can see this, so this is Farm Bureau's one for 2023. I can't even read it. It's 11 filings in Kansas. And what's that? Oklahoma's 2 filings. You guys are stellar. So I'm gonna bring some politics into it. You guys can throw tomatoes, your pops at me, or whatever else. You know what changes on this curve? I'm gonna tell you, I make money when a Democratic president is in office when we're farming. And you can laugh, you can look at this, but when you look at what happens in here, this is the Trump era, right? Bankruptcy filings go skyrocket. Biden, this curve, guess what it's doing? I don't even have to tell you. It's already turning and going back up. Arkansas is just ready to file the most bankruptcy filings they've ever had, right now.
So I had a brother-in-law, farmed for 45 years, and he is as much anti-Democrat that anybody you ever seen. And he'll tell you his most profitable years are what you just said.
Yep, I'm a registered Republican, right? So, but I'm gonna tell you, I make money when a Democrat is the president.
Silly money coming out of it.
But it's like, is it,
Inflation reduction.
is.
I could guarantee that.
Is some of it tied to increased payments?
Could be.
A couple of years ago, 71%.
But what do you think they're trying to do now, Aaron?
Farm income.
Well,
What are we all getting paid for already again, right? We're trying to offset this number, right? So Biden did it, Trump's gonna do it,
Yeah, it doesn't matter the way.
but look at the steepness of that.
Right.
I mean, that's impressive. And I guarantee you that when that goes back up the other way, it's gonna be a huge spike that's coming. So here's where I was at in 2021. This is how we kind of look at a whole farm aspect. I owed $55,000 on equipment. I have a $500,000 line of credit. I have to pay back $555,000. That is a hard number. I know what it is. This is what I got to work with. I have 2,400 acres of corn and milo to market that year. Cash price was $6. I needed 92,000 bushels to pay back that number right there. That's 38 bushels per acre when my APH on between those two crops is 68. How much risk do I have here? None, man. I mean, this is what it's about, trying to figure this out. 2024, we bought some stuff. I still have this $500,000 line of credit, paying it back. We have 36, almost 3,700 acres of this stuff to harvest. Here's my average price, 36, I'm still good. We're still rolling along here. Which led us to we talked a little bit about this last night. Can I be my own banker? Do I want to farm without the bank? Hopefully all your heads start getting yes, you want to farm without the bank. How we do this is we get money market accounts, and you use these as my line of credit. So I'm borrowing money from myself, is what I'm doing. And you have to repay this back, just like you would the bank. You have to be diligent enough to make sure you pay this back. How this concept come in, if anybody read the book Farming Without the Bank, there's a gal in North Dakota who wrote that book. They do this with whole life policy, right? The problem was I had to take that policy out on my parents that are aging. It's gonna cost me 35% of my $1 million to put in here. Let's say 35% of that I just gonna lose out of my pocket, and the agent's happy. So I thought the money markets were a little bit better way to do that than the whole term life insurance policy. I treat this like this is the wife's money, and she's gonna kill me if I don't pay her back, right? So So here's what we're doing today. We got 500,000 in a line of credit in a money market. This was in 2024. We earned 3% on this. That's $8,500 in interest that I paid myself. I have this at the same bank. I can grab my phone. Typically, you get 6 withdrawals a year on, or a month on a money market. I can do those on my phone. Typically, we pay bills, twice a month, most of us, so you just transfer when you need to on it, and it's really easy. So, and the other thing, how we ended up being our own banker, Lance kind of background on this, we went to enterprise units. We've dropped some of the hail insurance, all this, just on our farm in 2024, going to enterprise units versus optional units, saved me $27,000 a year. So that's what we look at, trying to maximize where we're at. This is another reason, Lance, sometimes I've saved this $27,000. Maybe I can afford to eat that if I get, a little bit held out, So that's kind of where we're looking at doing things like that. Another thing we do is if I know I have a land or machinery payment coming, right now, instead of the money markets, put them in 3-month or 6-month CDs. They're paying like 4 to 5% right now. So if you know you have even a truck payment, whatever else, put that payment aside, let it make money, you pay it, and then you load it back up if you can, and move on. Just other things to do. But yeah, we use the CDs right now a lot for quick loans that we have coming due. It might pull that money out of that money market because it's going to only make 3%. This might make 2% more on it, so you might pull that out of there and put it in a CD that is short-term better money. So I always have everything in numbers. This is where I started out on some of our farms at 0.7 organic matter. I'm at 2.5, a lot of it. Today, I looked at that. That's a 350% increase in 20 years. It took me 20 years to do this. So that's a 17.5% increase in the value that should be the most important value on your farm, is your land, right? That's way better than a CD. I mean, this is the number you take to your bankers and tell them, we're investing in the future. This is the number showing we're gaining. This is nutrient cycling. This is water holding capacity. This is what we're striving for. So quick summary, I'll just tell you, we over a chem fallow period, when we eliminated fallow, that was $50 an acre saving. We have reduced fertilizer and chemical at this point by 1/3 on our farm. Our goal is to get to 50% reduction if we can financially afford that risk to get down to those lower yields, if the yields will get there. Everybody tells me at some point we might not keep dropping on yields, but we could. It did help with having cover crops, getting weeds that are hard to kill or get rid of them. And I always say, don't be afraid to try something new and stick with it for a few years. We all fail, and if we didn't get back up, none of us would be sitting here. This is why I no-till, because I don't want to be the plow, so. Any questions on, I know it's a lot of numbers and a lot of stuff to throw at you.
Your bluegrass